You're listening to the Platte River Bard.
Hello, and welcome to the Platte River Bard. This is Chris Berger.
And I'm Sherry Berger.
And today we are here with our Directors Roundtable Part 2.
Yay!
Oh my
Lincoln
gosh. Yes.
Edition.
We are doing it again, and we are here with Jamie Bullins. He is UNL at Johnny Carson School of Theater and Film. He is Associate Professor of Theater. He's also a Director.
Yes.
We have Morrie Enders. He is the Executive Director of the Lincoln Community Playhouse. Welcome, sir. Nice
Thank
to see you in person.
In person this
I know.
time.
Yes.
It's so nice to be here in a room with real people.
I know.
Yes.
It's nice.
Yes.
And Timothy Scholl. He is with Angels Theater Company. He is their Executive Artistic Director.
Hello.
Once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us
Yes.
here today.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, we get to do this in person in Lincoln.
Yes.
It's not a round table, it's rectangular, but we're doing it anyway.
It's a long table.
It's a long table.
Yes.
So, I guess we'll start off with some questions from our bag, unless you want to talk a little bit more.
No. Go right ahead.
All right.
Go
I'm
right
gonna
ahead.
choose
Reach
one.
into the mystery bag, the mystery tin.
The Mystery 10. Okay. Do you
Yeah.
like to give curtain speeches?
Oh. Who loves a good curtain speech?
I don't think, Jamie, do you do curtain speeches?
I have. I'm
Yeah.
torn. I'm torn about curtain speeches because I think they can be a bridge, a connection to the audience between the administration of the theater or the director of the theater, prior to the show. I think if anybody's going to give a live curtain speech, it should either be the artistic director of the organization or the director of the show, so that there's a connection there. But then I also hate them, and I wish that you just record something and say, turn off your cell phones, shut up and enjoy the show. I don't know. Because sometimes, I will say that the worst curtain speeches ever are when people get up there who don't know how to do it or don't want to do it, and then it's really bad.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I have given a lot of these, and I'm going to tell you a story here that references Morrie, so that'll be good.
Oh my God, I hope it's a good reference.
It is a good reference.
Okay.
So I give curtain speeches before all of our shows,
Okay.
and to Jamie's point, I'm the director. But as an artist, I don't necessarily like them as part of the performance. The reason I do it is because we are building an audience and building a culture and building a new play mystique around Angels Theater Company. And I remember meeting with some community members and talking about, why we do this and why the curtain speech is important. And they said, well, here's why it's important. Morrie Enders at the Playhouse. I have a relationship with Morrie. Morrie may not know who I am, but because he is the persona of the Playhouse, and because I see him at all of the performances, I have a relationship. I don't know who you are. So I need to know who you are as part of your theater and part of your identity, so that I can be more in tune with Angels. And that made sense to me. So I'm with Jamie. I'm not sure that I like them all the time, but I think they are necessary for sometimes reasons outside of the production.
Yeah.
Ironically, I'm probably the king of the curtain speech, and I'm thinking of not doing them.
Really?
Yeah.
Really thinking of stopping doing them?
Yeah. Well, here's the reason. So, we've just come off of a couple of plays, Cabaret, which had no curtain speech, because I could not feel how we could move from welcoming people to the audience who are already been welcomed because cast members were out there in kind of imposing statuesque cabaret girls and boys, and you were already kind of entering the world of cabaret, and then to stop for a moment while I go, thanks for coming, I thought that's going to be kind of a jar to go from the world, out of the world, back to the world. And then in the play that goes wrong, there technically was a curtain speech, but it was delivered by characters as written in the script.
Okay.
And so again, there was no need for me to stand up there. And I was kind of like, and we haven't had too much problem in those plays, or the play that we're currently doing, the Penguin Project Danny Jr., of photography, cameras, and I'm like, theater people they know that we don't need to be told to turn off your cell phone. Some other people do because there's new people.
Sure.
But can we do that with signs and maybe not have to start the show with that? On the flip side of that, I think now I may have to do them again because that is, it is part of the reason to do them is because you become the face of the theater of an anonymous organization.
Right.
It is establishing a relationship beyond buying a ticket and sitting in a play. It is, in our situation, we're the community playhouse, and there is that sense of reminding us that we are the community coming together to celebrate an artistic event, that something that only humans do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, animals play, but animals don't tell stories.
No.
But we're the only creature on earth that says, hey, you know what happened today? And then act it out for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
In real life, in not just in a theater setting. So it is important. It also has been important to thank sponsors, to make sure that there are things going on, also upcoming events or things that are happening at the Playhouse. Those kind of items are nice to be able to say to the audience. I will agree with both of these gentlemen that they got to be short. They've got to be well-spoken. They've got to be do it and get off. And the last thing you want to do, because we have all sat through curtain speeches, one, people who don't normally speak in public, who just are bad at doing it, people who talk too long, and we're like, get on with the play. People who, and this is like, I've been to some dinner theaters where they're like, and Joe and Fran are having their anniversary, and I'm like, okay, that stuff, I have actually said that on occasion. but usually it's because Joe and Fran have given me a lot of money. That's right. But so that seems a little hokey part of it. Like a welcome, information that's necessary, and then be done and let the play start.
And it's it functions as a greeting. Who doesn't like a greeting, right?
Yeah.
When you go somewhere, you like to be greeted, and
It's just as important for an educational
I think so because
setting as opposed to.
I think so because you need to
community-
know the face of that department and that school, right? And I think that becomes it helps to demystify or to get rid of this ivory tower stuff. I'm the Don Quixote of the ivory tower of academia. I just want to knock it down because that kind of thing really is the worst. And so I think if you put a face on the stage doing a curtain speech before the show, it helps to take one chink out of the wall of that ivory tower.
I also want to, I need to add this, that being so identified as the curtain speech person, when I'm not doing it, the person who usually is a staff member who's delegated to do it tells the audience where I am because they think I'm sick or dead or in the hospital. Because when we didn't do that, people would come and go, where is he?
Yeah.
Is he all right?
Yeah.
Because you're that identified with being the face of the theater.
Yeah, and I think that's what the community, when they came to me, was about is, look, I have I may not know Morrie. Morrie probably doesn't know me, but I have that relationship with him because I am a member of the Community Playhouse.
Yeah.
And you get stopped in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you don't know who they are, but they saw you stand up there.
Yes, and they see every time.
Yep. I guess I'm doing it again. Maybe you guys turned me around.
Apparently,
I think I have to do it
You have a
again.
choice.
No,
Yeah,
kind of
that's right.
not.
Yeah.
So you're in.
My secret plan the whole time was to get Morrie back into the curtain speech.
Rumor has it that he's thinking of not doing it.
We need to put that rumor to bed.
That's right.
None of that, Morrie.
Fix that.
But you bring up such an interesting point because there are so many theaters out there that they don't have an artistic director that's dedicated to their theater. They're just bringing in directors and paying them,
Sort of a
independent
round robin,
contractors. And that question would probably eventually make it into my little tin here anyway. But how do you feel about that? Because as a butts and seats person and someone who's usually behind or in front of the stage but not on the stage, I like the identity of you with your theater and you with UNL.
Have an
I
artistic
like
director,
that.
as opposed to we got 6 directors doing our 6 shows this year.
Well, and usually by
Yeah.
contract, most guest directors are gone after
Yeah.
the show
Right.
opens, so
Yeah.
you can't even have them do that.
Well, that's true. Yeah, as soon as the show opens, they're off to the next
Yeah,
thing.
if I did the curtain speech for a show I directed at LCP, they'd be like, "Get that guy off of there. Who the hell is that guy?" But like, we don't know who that is. Get him out of here.
Morrie's sick.
It's like,
We're sick.
Morrie's dead. I'm here.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's really important to identify, and so that I think people just naturally tend to gravitate towards
Right.
that person.
Well, people tend to gravitate toward people, right?
Right.
And so I think
Yeah.
that's what it is.
I also think
Put a face to
sometimes I'll hear anti-curtain speech people say, "Well, we're having this pre-show music and the night," and I'm like, okay, I already said the cabaret thing was too deep when you came in and there were actors around.
Actors,
and
actually.
we had put red floodlights in the lobby to give it decadence, and so that seemed to be more user and interactive. But playing some 1920s music before a 1920s show, really, our audiences
Yeah.
can't stop for a second and have me say welcome and
Oh, they absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
and then back to just a little bit of trail end of 20s music and into the blackout.
Sure.
I think we're smart enough to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to have everybody remember their inner Samuel Taylor Coleridge, willing suspension of disbelief.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Audiences are very good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before you let this go, I think
Oh,
that
yeah.
Morrie did
No.
bring up something really important, that sometimes this is show-based too. Because I happen to agree with you, especially with Cabaret, that opening song is a welcome,
Right.
is a bring
Yeah,
you
for
into
sure.
the world. And so I think it would have been very awkward to have a curtain speech and then a welcome into the world of the cabaret. So that's,
Unless you were dressed like the MC.
I was not. I also have to add another bad curtain speech idea is when actors do it in character.
Oh.
That drives me crazy.
yeah.
So, like, I
I've
saw
seen
this
that.
production of Fun Home at a college, and it was a great production, except the curtain speech was done by the 2 college students who were playing the little kids.
Oh.
And they did it as a funny thing, and I'm like, one, that's
Ooh.
tonally wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a ha 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 show.
No.
And it was just odd. And so I think
that is odd.
the
That is
characters
odd.
belong in the play, not in a curtain speech.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. That is weird.
Now, I've seen board members give curtain speeches too. from time
And the
to
donations start flying out the window instead of into your window.
yeah.
That's what happens when you don't have an artistic director, I guess. You got to get board members up there.
time. Well, yeah, or if you have
Yeah.
the director in the show.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, but-
sometimes the director will be in the show. True.
But if you're,
Depends on the place.
the thing is, if you're doing a curtain speech, and there are reasons to do it, you just have to select the right person to do it.
Yes.
That's part of the formula. Otherwise, it is a burden on the audience to be bored to death for 2 minutes.
Right.
I worked with an artistic director once who was very
Horrible.
mousy and really, pardon my French, just weird. He was just a weird guy.
I'm sitting right here.
And when he got up to give curtain speeches, I literally was just like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Because
not
it
this
was
again.
embarrassing. Because he just got
Yeah.
up there and like kicked his feet around and put his hands in his pockets and was just weird.
Oh no!
And I'm like, ugh, get that guy out of here.
yeah,
I
you're
was like,
making things worse.
Yeah, I'm like, somebody. I was like, so we ended up just recording curtain speeches and playing them.
See, and I think I actually think the recording thing is really impersonal. I'd rather have nothing.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you're going to do a curtain speech, you need to be consistent. I think don't do it just when you're fundraising.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're only making appearances to get
Ask
money
for
from
to
money.
get
people.
money, because then they're
Right.
trapped.
Yeah.
They're trapped.
Well, and that's all.
Again.
It's like, oh god, here he's coming up. He's going to ask for money.
Must
Yeah.
be about
And so
money.
you're talking about the face of the theater and developing a relationship. If the only time you see me is when I'm standing there going, please give me money.
Asking for
Right.
money.
Yeah.
It's
Then
like
People will run.
church.
People will run from you in the grocery.
Yeah, I mean, I do it in subtle ways, like buy a Sandy dog, but it still give me money, but it doesn't sound quite like it.
Yeah.
I just think that each artistic director of every theater brings so much to the table as far as loyalty and like to that organization that I think curtain speeches are really important.
I like it.
Yeah, I always feel more attached, I guess, emotionally attached. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I'll pick another one.
Reach in.
That was great. I love that discussion.
Reach in.
Oh, we did this one on the last one.
Okay, well then don't do that.
That one looked way too long.
I got to put some more in
That
there.
was long.
Oh, and this was on the last one too, but I don't know if anybody uses flats.
Yeah.
Well,
Flats, like
I mean-
scenery pizzas?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Do you use flats?
Yeah.
sometime.
I'm not the person to really talk about it.
Okay, we'll go to the next one.
Okay, the next one.
Okay.
I fall off heels all the time. I don't know about the rest of you.
Yeah, me too.
What has been your most memorable casting experience?
Oh my.
Is that a,
Do you hate these questions
is it
yet?
It's a memorable meaning. The best one or the worst one?
Either way.
Most
That's
memorable.
why it says memorable, Jamie.
Jeez. I was just talking to Morrie. I had the opportunity to work with Austin Pendleton a few years, and he was amazing. So I found that as one of my most memorable experiences as a director, because he's like an institution of the American theater. So having the opportunity to work with someone like that, and he was fun to work with, right? You know, he gave as much as he got, and you know, we could go back and forth, and he's really smart. And so being able to talk to an actor, I mean, he brought new things to the table for Scrooge, which you think that's played out, right? Nobody's going to bring something new to the table when you're
Right.
playing Scrooge, and he did.
Nice.
And we had these long conversations about Dickens, and because he wasn't really a fan of Dickens until he started working on this show, and so, I mean, he was pretty incredible. It's a very memorable moment, especially like if you see a movie that he's in. They bring the Muppet movie back to the theaters like once every summer or something, once every other summer or something. And about 2 summers ago, I went to see the Muppet movie, and I had forgotten that he was in that, and he had such a significant role, and I like emailed him like immediately and was like, what was the most memorable part of that for you? And he was like, well, working with Jim Henson and Frank Oz. And I'm just like, you know, that kind of thing and he was just amazing to work with. He wouldn't let us, I couldn't send a car to pick him up for a show. Like, he would only ride the subway. He wouldn't, you know, he was so unassuming and just super easy to work with. And so I think that's probably been my most memorable, because I worked with him for like 4 years in a row. So it was really kind of fun.
Wow,
Yeah, that's very memorable.
that's memorable. And if you don't have any, that's okay. We can still talk
Well,
about casting.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd twist the question into a discussion of casting and how we go about casting,
great one.
and
Yeah.
how casting can impact a production or a view of a production. Jamie knows this a little bit more, but I have taken to using readings as casting opportunities as opposed to cattle call kind of auditions.
Oh,
One, because I think it gives the actor a better shot at, you know, here's what I can do with this role.
Right, whatever you're casting for, yeah.
Right. And it also gives me a better look at what the range of an actor may be. And the other thing that I think is really important for me, and I try to do, is too often I think we look at casting as, okay, who's the right person for this role? And I prefer approach or who are the right people for this show? Because sometimes you can get a cast that isn't as cohesive because of the people who are best for the role. And I would rather have the people who are best for the show than the one person who's right for the role. And that, you know, that requires that we know a little bit about artist temperament, actor temperament, how actors work together. It can be a little bit more complicated and a little bit more cumbersome that way, but I think that I've had more success with that approach than I have with the traditional, I call them cattle call auditions. I don't mean to be disrespectful, because
No.
those are the standard, but
right.
Yeah.
I guess I also have the luxury of not doing that. So
Well, so you have a lot of people that you pull from, then, is basically what you're saying. You kind of pull from just people that you already have worked with. So if you have someone show up, if you do auditions and you have people that show up that you don't know, do you ever do that?
yeah, I put them in a reading.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
I'm a big fan of readings as opposed to a prepared piece.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I'd rather see them take on what we're going to be doing, as opposed to
Right.
here's this thing that I prepared.
Yeah, so in casting a show, I'll schedule like 4 or 5 different readings, and the cast is always different. Sometimes the same people read different roles or things like that, and oftentimes they don't even get cast in the role that
Yeah.
they were reading during the reading. But
Right.
I find that that's to me, it gives the actor a lot more to dive into, and I get to see a lot more range
Yeah.
of what that actor can do.
I see.
But yeah, so if I am introduced to somebody and they said, hey, you should, great, come read this script with us and let's talk.
Yeah.
So I'll see new people and people that I'm familiar with, and
Yeah.
so it's not quite as egalitarian, I guess, but it's I think it's a deeper experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. What about
Well,
you, Morrie?
so here's a couple. I'm going to circle around on all of this. So in
Great.
Tim's comment about the right people, I always use, when I do directing tips, I use this line from the movie Miracle, which was a story of the hockey team, U.S.
Oh,
Olympic
yeah.
hockey team. And Kurt Russell's playing the coach, and they have their tryouts. And the assistant coach is sitting there, and Kurt Russell comes over and he hands the guy the roster. He goes, here's the team. And the guy looks at it and goes, these aren't the best players. And Kurt Russell says, our job's not to pick the best players, it's to pick the right players.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think because it's, especially if you're in directing tips, when you're dealing with a lot of newer directors, they just want it's not just the best people. The best people may suck
In the
Right.
process.
altogether
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
process of putting on the play. You have to put the right team together for the play. And then, and we do the regular down and dirty auditions. William Ball, who was a director, I liked his idea, his concept of auditions, which is like, auditions is 2 dogs meeting and they sniff each other's butts. And either they fight or they play together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some sense of that in an audition. You're making snap judgments, and I understand if you have the luxury of being able to, get to know people a little bit. And that's also one of the ways in our theater you can audition for the first time and play the lead role. You can also audition and play a lesser role that we're kind of trying you out in a reading, but putting you
Sure.
into the
Yeah.
play, so we see how it is to work with you. But I also want to circle back to memorable casting things. There's a couple of I was working with an actor in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and we had worked in many plays together. And he was playing the lead in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And there was this one moment where one actor, he was talking to this other actor, and I said, oh, I got an idea. He goes, I got it. And then we went back and he did what I was thinking.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, that was awesome. And when then we stopped the rehearsal, we're like, that was awesome! And then we have worked together enough that he could read my mind.
Yeah.
And I
he
thought
understood
that's
exactly
pretty
what you
amazing.
were going to say. Yeah.
And then on the other side of things, as a community theater, we're about many things of what we do at our Playhouse. And so we have this Penguin Project. And the Penguin Project is an annual show where all the roles are played by children with special needs, partnered with peer mentors. And a couple of years ago, we were doing The Wizard of Oz, and we cast this young man named Caden as Uncle Henry. And Caden has many issues, and has a speech box, for instance, because he's nonverbal as far as words. He played Uncle Henry, and so he loved being in it. You could tell he loved being in it. His family says, he has no subtext. How he feels is what he's going to give you, and he sometimes he was upset about this or that, but most of the time he's having the greatest time, and would throw his head back and just beam, and he has this 1,000-watt smile, and but a lot of times when he's been in other things, he's like at the end of the choir row, and that's where he is. And here in the Wizard of Oz, he was center stage. And with the help of his mentor, and the lines were programmed into his speech assistive device, he was doing the lines back and forth with Dorothy and Auntie M and Miss Gulch, and he was in the center of the action. And to have this young man who oftentimes is not included,
Yeah.
Inclusive can mean not much inclusive.
Right.
Yeah.
But he was in the thick of the action, and to not only that he had a great time doing it, but his parents were able to experience him being in the middle of the play. And the audience could see and go, we can change the way we think of theater and acting by what's happening on the stage right now. So, so the Penguin Project has memorable examples sprinkled throughout it. But that's one that really comes to my mind, that you can look back and go, the world changed.
Yeah.
For
Right.
him,
Yeah.
his family,
Yeah.
for everybody in that audience, for the Playhouse, because we now have a new version of what theater can be.
Yes.
I will second that because I worked on the Penguin Project 2 years ago, and I remember sitting in the house, even before opening night in rehearsal, just being amazed. I mean, it's almost like you are changed. I mean, that's what we do theater for, right? We're storytellers, and we want to change people. The Penguin Project changes people. It changes not just the audience, but it changes those young people who are up there, the peer mentors. It gives them an experience that they would never have outside that, and a new understanding. And those students that are those kids that are in the play, it's just amazing. And I sat out there all during dress rehearsal and before we opened. I had 2 assistants with me, and they were just like, "Are you going to cry again?" And I was like, "If you don't cry, you are heartless."
That's right.
But yeah, it's just so moving to be there and be in that room and be part of that. Yeah.
When is your Penguin Project? When is it coming?
Well, actually,
next?
we're in the middle of it
Yeah.
right now. So
Closes-
it
Closes
was,
this weekend.
yeah, it opened.
It is,
It
yeah.
reopens tonight, plays tomorrow and Sunday, and then it goes away till next February.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes, and their next
That's great.
year's is, they're doing one again next
the
year.
Lion King
Yeah.
Jr., which
Yes.
will be the biggest Penguin Project ever.
I bet.
And
Yeah.
this one is Annie Jr., right?
Annie Jr., and it's actually our 10th anniversary because we started with Annie Jr., and so we're calling it our 10th anniversary.
Hey,
Oh,
all right.
how cute.
Thank you,
Nice.
thank you. I didn't even think of that. That was
That's
Larissa in the box
adorable.
office. She's either, you can cheer or jeer her for that one.
That's adorable. Yeah, and speaking of which, I heard a rendition of Annie that was so unlike the song, but it had, remnants of it. It was so good.
Are you talking, maybe that tomorrow that the woman sang on America's Got Talent, or Britain's Got Talent?
Yes, it's
Sydney
exactly
Christmas.
it. Yes.
Sydney Christmas was her name.
Her
You're
name
so
was
good
what?
you knew that.
Her name was Sickly Christmas.
Sydney.
Oh, Sydney. I thought you said her name was
Maybe this is
Sickly
why I'm
Christmas.
no longer doing the curtain speech.
I was like, oh,
What the hell is that man saying up there?
Sickly Christmas.
Very sickly Christmas.
That sounds like
Sydney
a-
Christmas. I also heard that, and it's
Wasn't it amazing?
Yeah, really great.
Yeah, I never heard anything like it.
I missed that.
It's on
YouTube
Facebook.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Yeah.
well, there's a lot of stuff. on Facebook.
Unfortunately, on Spotify, she just has 2, I'll call them weird songs, but they're like
Oh.
contemporary music.
I see.
Okay.
But she generally was singing the standards, the American Songbook on that show.
Nice.
So, Chris, when you Google Sickly Christmas, let me know what you get.
Oh my God, there goes.
Afraid to.
Yeah, because you know what's going to happen. All the other things that you're going to get for the next 3 weeks,
God.
That's true.
based on that search.
Foul by
Yeah.
search history.
Okay, so I have some weird ones here.
Oh,
I don't
weird.
even
Yeah,
remember
wow.
writing this
Excellent.
one.
It's a
I don't
weird.
even remember writing this one.
All right, get it.
Um,
Lay it on us.
It's become mainstream to do shows that have a premise on an ideology, and traditional shows are going by the wayside. Are you concerned audiences will miss these? You do a lot.
I do traditional shows, so
Yeah.
for the
Say-
most
I mean,
part.
they're doing Fiddler next year, so I think it's pretty safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
interesting.
You know,
Yes.
but I mean,
So-
like Cabaret was more of a push than usual, but that's built into the show. And
Yeah. Well, and is Cabaret may be considered traditional now?
yeah,
You know?
well,
It's
I
sort of
guess.
grandfathered in
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
way, it's been around for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, it's almost like even Sondheim's plays that were so new for like Into the Woods and Sunday in the Park with George. They're just traditional now. They're not even. They're not new and different.
Right.
So which shows are you talking about?
The shows that tend to. 'Cause
Preach?
I know it's being recorded.
Like Agit Prop?
Yeah, preach.
So, yeah, I
Preach-
will.
Preach social justice, preach.
We do all new plays, so I think this is.
Yeah.
You get more of it in the newer stuff for sure.
Yeah, but
Not
I
always.
But I will say that I I gravitate towards plays that ask questions, not plays that provide answers.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
And I mean, it's a very German way of looking at the world, which nobody's surprised by that coming from me. So,
Germany's awesome.
It didn't- yeah.
but it's we go to the theater to work out our answers for ourselves. There's a great article in Playbill right now about the play Here There Are Blueberries. Yeah, if you know that play.
I know the name. I don't know the play.
So it's about apparently a different version of a Holocaust story that they now have a photo album of these pictures of concentration camp guards who were essentially vacationing right next door to the concentration camp Auschwitz. And so they were like, it was almost like a East Coast retreat built right next door.
Oh.
Crazy.
And so it brings you a different perspective on this. And the article was talking about the fact that the theater still has this element of truth in the living actor on the stage. And that we can trust that because we're getting information, and then we're asked to make a decision for ourselves about that information. And this started a conversation with myself in my head, is if we go to the theater for truth, is it important that we all have the same facts in the audience to believe in the overall truth that we're seeing? And so I understand where the question is going, I think, but I would say I much prefer the theater, old shows or new shows, that ask questions rather than provides answers. And some of those questions can feel like agitprop because we don't always want to consider some of those questions. But I do think that it's important that you focus on the question and not on the particular ideology.
And I think to answer your question, Sherry, too, is like as our audiences age out, that's going to change, right?
Yeah.
Because the folks that are growing up now aren't accustomed to musicals like South Pacific, which can't really do much anymore. You know, we did the Fantastics not too long ago at LCP, and we had to change. You know, we got the publishing company and the writer to change some stuff. Because
They had already changed.
well,
it.
yes,
Yes,
I mean, but
we
that
did that
happened
version.
because of the new audiences, right?
Yep.
And so, and I think plays, you know, like Carousel, you know, there are things in these plays, what was it? Showboat, you know, things like that. Those issues that are being dealt with in those plays or musicals, we don't deal with them the same way anymore, and our culture doesn't deal with them the same way anymore. But I think as we start to age out of that, like my students now have no idea what Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum is. And I'm not sure people want to, the younger generations want to see that on stage. I always want to see Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum on stage because it's hilarious and it's fun, right? But I think as the audiences start to become accustomed to more modern musicals, more modern stories, those classics that we think of, I think they'll just kind of go by the wayside.
Some of them are getting reworked. I saw that Peter Pan got a major reworking because of all the Native American stuff and all that. And they're like, gosh, everybody loves Peter Pan, but there's some parts of it that are just like, we can't.
Yeah, a little different.
And they don't want to cut, and they're just tired of having to cut. And so it got like a major reworking, and I believe that's the Peter Pan that's coming through our area.
That'd be interesting.
I think
Or if
you're
we have a
right.
lead center in one of them, but it got a major sort of overhaul and like a new song that they sing, and so there's like new music and new dialogue and new circumstances and some of the Lost Boys stuff was changed around, and I'm curious if that's successful. Is that what we're looking at maybe for some of this older stuff that maybe have certain portions of this guy? Actually, I love this musical, but man, that one part, you just can't do it. I mean, it's like, and it messes up the whole musical, and you can't take it out, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Well, and if you think about things like we were earlier discussing To Kill a Mockingbird, and
Yes.
the version that's here now is Sorkin's version that he's retooled.
Yes.
And he talks a little bit about that in a lot of media, so we don't have to rehash that. But it's interesting to see how these I'm going to say old stories, but these stories from the previous generation are being reworked. The other thing I'll say about this is, you may not know that I was there, but a good example is the reading that you were in at GPTC of Stand Your Ground.
Yes.
So Stand Your Ground is a play that sounds very political.
Yes, it sounds very confrontational.
It sounds very confrontational. And then when you read the opening scene, it says it's in DeSantis era Florida. Everybody goes, oh.
Yeah.
But the playwright, I think, has done a really masterful job in that play of asking questions.
Yes.
And twisting what we may perceive, whatever our political bias is about that DeSantis era Florida. So I thought that was a very successful play in terms of,
Me too.
here's a bunch of questions that we need to confront as a society, and there's nobody being lampooned directly.
No.
It's more of a discussion of, look, this is A leads to B leads to C. What are you comfortable with on this continuum? And so I thought it was a very interesting reading.
Yes, and he had lots of different characters on sort of both sides of the ideological fence, and none of them were treated sort of lesser.
Right.
And they all, while not the play itself, not providing answers, like you said, asking questions, they all, for the most part, got to sort of state why they did the things they did and why they believe the things they believe, and none of it was sort of dismissive. You
Right.
know, like, I believe this because I'm an idiot or something. You know what I mean? It
Oh,
wasn't-
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it got back to it, what I think is a fundamental truth about theater, and it's a fundamental truth for me, and that is we go to the theater because we are exercising our compassion. And we're exercising our compassion with these characters on stage. And whether you agree with them or not, you are going to see them in their humanity
Yes.
and understand their point of view. And I really appreciate the theater that forces us to confront. I mean, because it's easy to lampoon someone and put someone up as a straw character.
Yes.
It's harder to see them in their humanity and have compassion for them. And
agree.
theater done well forces you into that compassion.
Yeah.
I'll also
End of soapbox sermon. Sorry.
No, please.
I'll tell you that if you want me to not come to your theater production, tell me that it's good for me, or that it's important theater.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, that means it's going to be boring. So I think that you can make a playwright, and a theater company that supports the playwright's work can make a statement, but I want it to be entertaining / engaging,
Right.
or else that statement's going to go shoop, right over my head. So I'm thinking of like here's an example that I only know sort of about. So Suffs is a musical that's playing on Broadway, and Suffs is about the women's suffrage movement in America. And it had I've seen the Broadway version, but my partner saw the off-Broadway version, which is like 2 years ago now, which was at the Public, and they gave it a chance, and they here, try it out, and from the sounds of what happened and the clips that I've seen from that first production, it was very important, and it was good for you. And the playwright who wrote, Shayna Taub, who wrote the music, wrote the lyrics, wrote the book, is in it, playing Alice Paul. Had even she said, I had to stop looking about the research, because what I was doing was putting my research on stage. And I needed and so that's what you were getting was a musicalized Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
But it was good for you because people don't know the story of what these women went through.
Sure.
I mean, even when I first heard that they were force-fed, I was like, well, then they held them down and shoved a sandwich in their face. No, they put a tube down their nose. And some of the women, like Alice Paul, had health problems the rest of her life because of that. So the trauma, her body trauma from that. So, people do need to know this, and it is important to know this, and it would be good for the world to know this. However, that first version of the Public sounded like it wasn't engaging or entertaining as much as this version that is now on Broadway, because she retooled it. She went back,
Yeah.
she started to disengage from the research. She started to rewrite it to try to help us understand who these women were as people. And
Yes.
I'm just going to say, from seeing the Broadway version, she did an amazing transformation job, because you, in very quick writing, you feel like you know the women, and you feel for them, the empathy, the compassion. She was able to now get that. And when women go into the prison and they're abused, I mean, it means more, because she's been able to make them humans
Yes.
before that happens to them. And she added a song called "The Great American Bitch" in it, which is a reclaiming of the word bitch. And it is a song that these women, after this gigantic march that they had in Washington, where one of the younger women, who, by the way, was from Nebraska, Doris Stevens, was from Omaha, and she gets called a bitch, and she's upset about it, and the women all look at each other. There's this moment where, like, you think that they're going to be compassionate, and instead they're like, "Congratulations!" It's like a badge of honor to have some
Yeah.
jerk call you a bitch. It means you're doing something.
Yeah.
And so they sing this celebratory song with her about being called a bitch. And it reclaims that word, or at least it attempts to reclaim that word.
Right.
And and that I also read in this book about film that said laughter is the greatest tool to create empathy.
Yes.
And this person in the book said that's why when people give a speech at Rotary, they start with a joke.
Yes.
Because it creates immediate empathy, because you've made me laugh and we've bonded.
Yes.
And so by putting that humor into these characters, she's made them more lifelike, and we empathize with them more. And so that has taken, I think, a work that she first felt, I shouldn't speak for her, but that seems like it was important for her to write this, to change that, to transform it to a show that we can all be engaged by, entertained by. I couldn't believe how much I laughed at it, and then I cried several points. And it's because the important work became engaging work, and I think that's a real when you the first way the question is posed, I think we all kind of went to declaratory theater about mission issue oriented, and I think that's a turnoff. I think you've got to slip those issues in around the side.
Something
Well,
entertaining.
the other thing too is, like, if you do a play about something that's a historical event or people, the goal for me as an audience member would be that sticks with me, and then I go do the research. Right?
Right. Which I did. I bought Doris Stevens'
See?
book.
It's like you stimulate
Jailed for freedom.
my mind
Yeah.
so that I want to go off and
Learn more.
read a book
Yeah.
and learn
Yes.
more. So, and I think that's a very successful experience.
Well, think about this moment. So here they're in their first march, right? And my first tears came because they separate. These women are in this big march asking for the right to vote. And they step out and they're spotlighted, and one woman sings, "I want my sister to know I was here." And the other one says, "I want my daughter to know I was here. I want my grandmother to know I was here. I want my great-grandchildren to know I was here." And so instead of this big panorama of a bunch of women in a march, you have these specific human moments where these women, like, this is important, not just because I'm here, because other women that I know in my life, it's important that they know that I was here.
Yeah.
Right.
And bam, phew,
Yeah.
they had me.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a great segue into the next question. But go ahead.
I will say also, I'm going to tell you that I have read several suffrage plays and musicals, and they weren't able to make that transition to be engaging and entertaining.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're
That's a hard
really
one to do.
dry.
Yeah.
And
Very dry,
because-
historical type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, nobody wants to be preached at. Right?
No.
You can talk to me and you
Right.
can tell me a story, but don't preach
Tell me a story.
at me.
Yeah.
Because, then I'm just like,
Well, I thought Predictor handled that well.
it did.
Yeah, because it was engaging. It was about this woman's life, and it was slanted, but it also gave you a lot of different perspectives on what the '60s were like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give us some good characters. Tell us a story. Draw us in that way. That's one of the things I thought was so
Yeah.
good about we just did Radium Girls is I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that was a historical thing, and awful things happened. But they could easily have just done sort of a, that sort of dry historical look at all these awful things this company did to all these women. But instead, we told the character, we told the story. It told the story of like a handful of these girls and what really happened to them, and you got completely sucked in to these girls' lives, and it was like and a nice way to, and everybody comes away from that play every time they see something. They're like, gosh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. Blah blah blah. And they always end up going and grabbing the book or something like that. I grabbed a couple of books. I was just like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just the crazy radium craze, and it kind of makes you care about it all over again. But they did such a good job, like you said. Good characters, good story. That's all you need.
Well, and then
Stop
you
preaching.
expand on something like that, because then you start thinking about, maybe there is a reason why there's government regulations on, on corporations and businesses,
Yes.
and why there are unions, and there's
Yes.
that all kind of
Well,
goes
that's
together.
burned a lot of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
that created a lot of sort of workplace and work environment regulations and all that.
Yeah.
Radioactive
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, it's just applause to good writing.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
writing
it
is super important.
Yes.
So yeah,
It all comes back to good writing, doesn't it?
I think so.
It's true.
It does. And that is a great segue. How do you decide what plays to read?
Tim sends them to me in an email and
Do
says,
you just like read anything and everything, or
That's what happened with, I sent you a play.
You did.
Yeah.
You sent me China Shop. And you're like,
Yeah.
hey, you should read this. I was like, all right.
Jamie reads no plays unless someone sends them to
That's
him.
right.
Yeah, that's right.
here's your thing. Okay.
Well, no. Also, if you send me a play and say this play starts with a man walking into a bar and throwing a dead rooster on the bar, I'll read that play.
You're gonna read
Which I
that.
still haven't read it, but I will.
It's an issue play.
This is an important play. No, it's important. I'm not gonna read that.
Yeah, I think I tallied it up. In the last 12 months, I've read well over 180 new scripts.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Ouch.
Gosh, you would think at some point you read so many that
So
Have you read the entire script of all of those?
no.
Or about 35 pages in, do you go,
So if I count the first 35 pages, you have to go over 200.
Okay.
Wow.
But yeah, there are, and without sounding, I don't want to sound disrespectful on the podcast. There's a lot of crap out there.
well, yeah.
Oh, there's so much crap.
But you read a lot of new plays that are not established plays, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So you're talking about new
And
new
so-
works.
Even established plays.
Or even established writers.
That's right, yeah.
We'll send you things that
Yeah.
are, you're like, oh, I can't, no, I'm not going to do that. So it's hard to find really good work. And we talked earlier, I'm really looking for questions, not answers.
Right.
And then going places like GPTC where we're seeing these new plays being read
And being developed.
and being developed along
Every
the-
time
along
we
the same
had
way.
3 rehearsals. Every time we hit the rehearsal, it was there were major changes, like 30, 40 new pages. I mean, like
Yeah.
significant. And then from the last time we did the rehearsal to the first time, or to the time we did the reading, it jumped another 30 pages. So
Right.
we had like 30 new pages. I mean, it was like this really
Yeah,
neat
the
work
playwright was really
work
engaged
in progress.
that.
He
Yeah.
was highly engaged. It was really neat. It
Yeah.
was really neat.
So it's, I do a lot of it, but it's also who we are.
That's
it's
that's sort of your mission.
So I've got to
Yeah.
create a new season for 24, 20, and I'm already working on 25, 26 for new plays for our reading series, new plays for our production, new plays for First Flight, all of these programs that we do.
Right.
So I don't think I'm a fair comparison because it's part of my job. But how do I decide? That's probably a better question or a more interesting question. I will admit that I have read plays simply based on the title.
Sure.
If I send you one called Sickly Christmas, will you-
Sickly Christmas, I might read that one. My 2 favorite recent play, we actually did a reading of this one, but it was called A Poisoning Squad of Whispering Women. And I was like, oh, I'm reading that one.
Poisoning Squad.
A Poisoning Squad of Whispering Women. And it was one of those plays, I read it and I was like, okay, this is okay. We did a reading of it and I was like, oh, the reading was fabulous. The reading was good.
Okay.
And then the next one we did a reading this year. It was called "The Gentle, Life-Changing Magic of Burning It All Down to the Ground."
Oh,
Yes, I saw that one.
Yeah, and that was
advertised.
it's not at all like it sounds, but
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to read it just for that title.
Sure.
But others, it'll be subject matter. I will look for, we have a theme every year, so I try to find things that fit into a theme, or if I'm looking for specific plays. Our theme this past year was "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" Stories about home, stories about
Right.
leaving home or coming back home. So I was, I'm looking for refugee plays, because I think that's an important thing that we need to bring into the series. So I'll search that as a keyword. I'm in like MPX or wherever I'm looking for these new scripts. And so, I find a lot of bad writing, but I also am completely entranced by the good writing that I find as well. So
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
How many plays do you think that you read on average before you? So you read quite a few. How about you, Morrie? How many do you read to do your season?
I'm not sure, but I read like 6 pages, and I'm either keep going or I'm done.
Ah.
So
You know pretty early, yeah.
Yeah, we act
Yeah.
for what I think are our needs.
Sure,
And,
sure.
we recently kind of purged our script library.
lot.
A lot, because this is we're in what year is this? 79 years, going into 79 years of the
Yeah.
Playhouse, and in the old days, you would get the catalog from these
Right.
companies in the fall, which was one of our high holiday days when the catalogs would arrive, and you'd get a title, a premise, you get a paragraph, it sounds interesting, you'd order it up, 'cause the only way you could read it. You'd get it, and 5 pages in, you're like, "Oh boy, this isn't,"
Yeah.
And so it went on the shelf, and so there were like shelves and shelves of plays that you couldn't do, or we weren't going to do.
Yeah, right.
And so now you can actually read those excerpts online, which I think the playwright,
Yes.
one playwright hates that I talked to, because they don't get the royalties on people buying your script, but. It's helpful for us because it helps on the budget, and also you can look 5 pages and go, "And this isn't for me."
Yes.
Right.
But we also like what I'll do is I'll keep my nose to the nose to the ground, ear to the ground, and so I'm looking at my peers. What are they all doing?
Yeah.
And then what's coming down to the pike to let us do it, because we are, as a community theaters,
Being a
we're the
community
last
theater,
people
yeah.
on the food chain, right?
Yes.
We get the rights to things usually.
Yes.
And so we're starving for new product, and so we say, "Oh, this came up," and so that's why you see around the country, you'll see a play suddenly become hot, because it's just been released
It's
to us.
become available,
Or
yeah.
frankly, a show like Cabaret has a revival in London that was big, makes us all go, "Oh, I haven't thought about Cabaret in a
Yeah.
long time."
Back
and,
into
and then
the
you start looking at it again, you go, "Yeah,
consciousness
this would be
again.
good." So those are reasons, but we did Every Brilliant Thing, which was a lovely play, and I only learned about that play because one of my peers in Salina, Kansas Community Theater did it, and I'm like, "What's this play? I've never heard of this play." And so he goes, "Here's what this play is." I'm like, "Dang, that's a good play." And then somebody else sees that we're doing it, and they write me and go, "What is that play?"
Yeah.
It's a good play, and so there's kind of the Underground
Right.
Railroad network of
Yeah, kind
of
of sharing around,
talking.
going, "Hey, that's
Yeah.
a good one." Yeah, nobody thought of that. Yeah.
And then we have things. I mean, obviously we're musical centric. We're entertainment centric. We cover all sorts of genres, comedies, dramas. We have plays that old people, kids plays. So we're looking at all sorts of things.
Yeah. And Jamie probably reads 30 plays a week.
No, I don't. But
He only reads when he's told.
That's true. Basically, nowadays, I only read the plays that people give to me to read for this reason or that reason. But I mean, we choose the season at the rep at UNL as a group,
Yes.
right? And so
Sure.
we all come together and put lots of plays on the table. So there's like in the spring, there's this rush of everybody, brings all these plays to the table, and we're like, "Oh gosh, I got to read all these plays,"
Yeah.
so that we can talk about what fits in that season, right? Because we sort of choose as a group, and then our director caps it off and makes
Narrows
the
it
final
down.
choice.
Okay.
But all the plays that are on the season for next year came from all the faculty and the director. We kind of all just threw these titles on the table, and when they throw certain things out, I'm like, "I don't know that play, now I got to go read it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's this rush in the spring of reading a lot of plays.
I
But
see.
outside that, I don't do a lot of selection. For me, it's people send me plays to read because they want me to work on it, or want me to direct it, or just want my opinion. And so I'm just lucky enough to be able to read plays in that way. I have been super lucky, and some playwrights have started sending me their plays to say, hey, can you just read this so we can talk about it? And I'm like,
sure.
great. I like doing that.
Which
That's
is
fun.
nice.
Yeah. Well, and there's a great story here because Jamie has a contact named Terry Guest
Yes.
who sent Jamie a couple plays. Oh, here's some plays I'm writing. One of your former students.
Yeah, he was
right?
one of my former students in Georgia, an actor, not a writer at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Jamie sends these plays on to me. He was like, oh, you're one of my former students started writing a play. And so I opened up the first one, and the first one was about the death of a drag queen, and I got 4 pages in. And I was like, yeah, this is not my thing. So I opened up the second one thinking, okay, well, I'll give this one a shot. The second one was Magnolia Ballet,
And it was incredible.
which is probably one of the top 10 plays I've read in my lifetime.
Really?
It was super strong. I remember
It
we talked
was.
about it afterward. I was like, I
I-
can't believe one of my students wrote this.
I
This is amazing.
emailed,
that's
I went to
great.
Jamie directly and I said, have you read this? Because
Yeah.
this is incredible. And it is just an incredible story. Well told, well written.
I think
beautiful
I think
imagery.
it's been produced now over the last 2 or 3 years in like 4 or 5 different theaters across the country.
Yeah, and it'll keep going.
Yeah.
He's writing a sequel to go with it, or has written the sequel. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, it's just this. So you find these gems kind of sometimes under rocks or being sent to you in email by people you don't expect.
Yeah.
One day we're gonna find our own Confederacy of Dunces. You guys know the story about
Yeah.
that book. So like in the writer, what's his name? Oh no, the writer of Confederacy of Dunces. It won a Pulitzer for literature a long time ago. But it was found. The completed manuscript was found under his bed after he killed himself.
Right.
His mother found it.
That's right.
And she shopped it around to English professors in New Orleans and in Louisiana until finally she annoyed one of them enough that he was like, fine, I'll read it. And then he read it and he was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is life-changing. And it was brilliant. And it won a Pulitzer. And I've done a stage adaptation of it. And someday they're going to make a movie out of it, maybe, if they ever get it right. But it's a brilliant book. And it was found under a kid's bed in his bedroom after he killed himself.
Oh.
And it was like, it was only his mother. If she had just found it and was like, oh, whatever, then it would. But no, she shopped that thing hard, and she just pushed and pushed and pushed until finally somebody read it, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you never know.
She really believed in his abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aw.
And
I
that's
didn't want to end on that
book.
question.
No, that book is amazing too. If you haven't read The Confederacy of Dunces,
I have not.
you need to read it. It is.
Okay.
It's a good book. I
Yeah.
read it when I was younger.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Now I need to come up with more popcorn questions because I don't want to make you have to ask the same answer the same question again. So
Is this a lightning round?
Bonus points.
well, I want to develop it because I don't want him to have to answer the same ones
Because
I
I'm
only
the
had
guy
a
who
few in
keeps showing
here.
up. I got nothing else to do.
I want
You're
you
the
to show
Charles
up.
Nelson Riley of Match Game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Hollywood Squares.
He's the Paul End.
The
All in.
I'm the Paul End of the Directors Roundtable.
or even worse, the Matthew Broderick of the David Letterman Show.
He's cuter,
Then Paul Lind.
I think.
I would say I would go to an evening of Paul Lynde before I would go to an evening of Matthew Broderick.
Fair enough.
All right.
Fair enough.
So I don't really have good popcorn questions. You guys can help me on the way out if you want. But let's end with,
Yes.
what show have you produced that you are most proud of?
Oh, see, these are hard questions.
They're hard
Which
questions.
one of your kids do you like the
I'm
best?
sorry.
Yeah.
We can pick a different one if you want. I just thought it might be a very uplifting one.
Yeah, that's a tough one to do.
Can you give
Okay,
us
let's
a
pick a
lit-
different one.
Okay, give us. Yeah, I was gonna say, can you say like within the last 2 years or something? I mean,
Oh, well, yeah, I mean.
and that's easier, isn't it?
I can't remember what we did last year.
Okay, there's my round robins. Let me just find a different one then. What kind of work are you interested in at the moment? We'll end with that one.
Yeah, what is
Because it
there?
can't be sad.
What's a new thing in theater?
A new thing?
Or something that's new to you that you've kind of been on to recently, or
What's
something
your
that you've
latest
been.
kick on?
Yeah, what's your latest kick that
All
you've
right,
kind of been on to?
I'll jump on this one, and this one might be. So I'm a relatively old and stodgy old guy for for doing a lot of new theater.
He has quite a whiskey collection.
It is a good whiskey collection.
You both have a good whiskey collection.
Well,
then.
he's rum. He's the rum guy.
I'm the rum guy.
That's right.
Rum.
Rum-
Oh, that's
rum
right.
guy.
Rum.
So it's actually outside of Angels Theater, but this fall I'm going to be directing A House Divided at the Leeds Center about Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
That's a great
And-
opportunity. Yeah.
We are going to have some projections as part of that show. I don't want to spoil a lot of stuff.
Right.
I am very hesitant about incorporating projections and how they work. I've seen them a couple of different times. I have seen them fail, and it really
it's a
creates
gamble.
that's a problem for me. And I can see how they can be used well, but I'm kind of just barely dipping my toe. So, in fact, after we leave this meeting, I'm going to a production meeting where, again, I'll be talking to the projection designer
Okay.
about how to be very, very conservative with these looks, so that we can. Okay, I'm putting my toe in the water,
Right.
but this is a brand new thing to me, and
Right.
it
You
makes
wanna go
me
nuts. Yeah.
makes me uneasy, just because I want to make sure that the project gets the focus that it needs. And it is new technology. It is something that I think will be part of, theaters and touring shows, and something we're all going to have to be familiar with at some point.
Projections and stuff. Yeah.
Well, it saves a little bit of money too, probably in the end.
If you have the right equipment.
Well, and
He's getting the equipment. Yeah.
we were talking earlier just about the Lead Center now. They just move these sets in and put them inside the shell, so to speak. So everything is built and ready. So all of these projections are all built into what they're doing, and we're kind of building it from scratch and putting it together. And so that's my. It's pretty light in comparison to your question here.
Yeah,
but
no.
that's what we're experimenting with, and what causes me to lose a little sleep at night.
Projections. Yeah.
Yeah,
Projection.
I actually say
gonna be
projections
great.
is the theater of the future that already happened and we're behind.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Right.
I mean, so we now have projection capability at the Playhouse, and it's $35,000 projector. So I mean that's, and so what the trick is, and we are also trying to finagle this, is how you can not fall into the just use projections.
Right.
And
Yes.
so we lose that 3D quality of theater, which, let's say an example is Radio City Music Hall Christmas show. So I'm old enough to remember when Santa was a kid in that show, and you would see it, and it would be hard stock scenery. Like I remember seeing this one scene that was on the rooftop of Manhattan, and they had these gigantic cutouts of the top of the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building, and they were on stage and and now they do the whole show in front of a screen. And it's not the same thing. I mean, I'm going to say it's wonderful because we are doing a New York tour that includes the Radio City Christmas Music Hall show, which it's still spectacular and so beautiful, but it's not the same as when it was
Right.
3D scenery. And so it's and I don't want to. We have to not get into the easiness of it, or we're going to end up having theater in front of a slide projector.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't use
it has to
as a
serve
crutch.
the show.
Yeah.
It can't be
Right.
just the two dangers I think are that oh this is the new thing, let's use it and show what cool things it can do,
Yes.
as opposed to connect it to the show you're doing. Or the other is as you say, using it badly.
Yeah.
So then it becomes a distraction rather than something that's core to.
It has to be a supportive element of the overall aesthetic.
Yeah,
It can't,
great
be,
way to
design.
it can't be a crutch. It can't
Yeah.
be a, no.
But in order to keep incorporating it to that level, it's actually going to cost more and more money to have multiple projectors
Yeah.
and things like that. Like in our with our Penguin project, it really helps us out because I have 60 young people on our stage. Some of them using wheelchairs and walkers, and they take up a lot of space. And that you cannot do levels, and you can't do a whole lot of scenery coming in, and even flying scenery in and out is a little more potentially dangerous as you have all of these young people on stage. And so by being able to clear the stage and use the projector, it's really helping us in that regard. But I don't want to fall into it being easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Your big go-to. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's really cool.
I bet it is.
And we've even seen in Broadway and stuff. We've seen the growth, the evolution of the projections where they were crap, and then the first time I was like, okay, I'm into this was Warhorse at Lincoln Center.
Yeah.
The projection work there was like, dang, it's just really subtle stuff that was happening. And as he was sketching the horse, it would sketch above you, and it was pretty. And
the same thought, care, design choices, intelligent choices, and techniques for storytelling have to go into the projections just like everything else.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And you have to have the right people to do that. I mean, so we need to be training people to develop this technology as well as the content. That's the thing that's super important. Is like you can spend $35,000 or $50,000 on a projector, but if you don't have an artist to create the content,
True.
then what are you going to throw up there?
Yeah,
and,
what are you
that's
doing?
what makes that so beautiful is that you have a designer who works with the director the same way every other designer does and creates this aesthetic,
Right.
that works for the story. But my only issue is like when I teach students about playwriting and directing, the first thing I say is don't ever put obstacles between your story and the audience. And the minute that a projection becomes an obstacle rather than a supportive element, then it needs to go away. So
Right.
we don't need to put the attention span span that the audiences have nowadays is so short now. You can't knock them out of the world, like by putting something in between them and like a long scene change or something that's just ill thought out in terms of like material. Then they will check out on you, and then you risk not getting the impact of the story that it could have. Right. So not just when they become that, then I don't think that they're worth it. So I'd rather have I had a very, very smart scenic design teacher in grad school, and he said, every time I work on a show, the very first question I ask is, why can't we do this on a bare stage? Why can't we tell this story on a bare stage? And then like I go a little further with that, and I'm like, why do I go through the script, and I'm like, okay, I can do this show with a chair and a floor lamp. I just need the right chair and the right floor lamp, and we're done.
2 boards and a passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But
Very interesting.
when those things get in the way. That's when technology gets in the way. Well, I feel that way in terms of our daily lives as well. Like when technology gets in the way, maybe we're relying on it too
Pull it
much.
back.
Yeah.
Strip it down a little more.
I agree.
By the way, here's your theater history lesson. That phrase, 2 boards and a passion.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love
Actu-
it.
It's a great phrase,
Yeah.
and people have misused it for many, many years. It goes back to the early Spanish theater when they would go into courtyards, and these theater troupes literally carried 2 boards with them, and they would set up those 2 boards on barrels in front of one of the sides of the buildings, and that's the way they did
That
their
was
show.
their stage.
So when De Vega says 2 boards and a passion, he's being quite literal.
Yeah.
About that's the 2 boards that you put up to create your stage.
Right.
We can totally take a show to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival now. Just 2
There you
boards.
go.
2 boards.
Just need 2 boards.
And if it's about Lope de Vega, then
You're in.
we have brought the universe back together.
That's right.
And the poster will say, "Come in, it's good for you."
That's good for you.
It's like telling a kid to eat their broccoli.
Right. Exactly right.
I like broccoli, so I can't.
True, me too.
This is not for the show, but I just came up with this idea. So one of the questions you should ask is, what is your favorite's the wrong word. What is your most feared theater myth?
Oh.
So things like whistling on stage or uttering the M word during production, or
Yeah.
Interesting.
and which one do you believe in and why? And then,
leaving on a ghost light or
not leave on good. Then send me those questions, and I will come on a different show and debunk them all from a historian's perspective. So here's the history of this.
I love it. No, I actually really.
Well, I like when you have the dress rehearsal and it doesn't go well. You say, well, it's a bad dress rehearsal. It means a good
That
performance.
means a good show.
And then
Yeah.
somebody goes, what if it's a good dress rehearsal? I said, it means a good performance.
Exactly.
You have to be hopeful
It was
at all times.
It's about belief.
Yeah.
Yes.
It all works
I
both
love that.
ways.
No, that's great. We'll do that at the next round table.
Yeah.
When we're back
Yeah.
to Lincoln.
That's great.
No, really, pretty Into the Woods. you can do.
I say that one's
And Sweeney Todd you could do.
Yeah.
Sure.
But everything else is just box office poison.
Kiss
Yeah.
it.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, but look at not to throw crap at community theater. Look at the actual total number of performances on Broadway of many of those shows. They're not popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you may like the art, but
Yeah.
art isn't easy.
Yeah,
Right.
and,
Quote
well, and
Stephen
art, you know,
Sondheim.
and art doesn't sell. I mean, one of my favorite plays of all time is called La Bête, and it's a play about
The
art.
Beast.
Yes, and it's written in rhyming couplets. It was on Broadway in like the 90s.
Written
and-
by the son of the guy who wrote the book to Pippin.
There you go. And it's a brilliant play, but it's about art, and it's funny, but it ran on Broadway for like
2
a
days?
week. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
a couple of weeks.
And then they brought
yeah.
a revival back a few years ago, but the only reason they revived it is because I think David Allen Greer, or
Ah.
what's that? David Allen Hyde. What's that
David
actor?
Hyde Pierce.
David Hyde
Yeah.
Pierce. He was in it, and of course, you know, if you get a name, it's a
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
It's
think
a
of
big
Merrily
thing.
We Roll Along.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Bomb, 19 performance Bomb. Now it's the gigantic hit, recouped and everything.
Yes.
And it's partially because he died, but they're like, oh, it's reworking of this. It's really built on the back of those three lead actors who went everywhere together on every show,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
were so delightful together that everybody wanted to see them. Plus, Harry Potter's in it,
Yeah.
and that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. That's
Yeah.
That's why you don't see
it's not-
Chekhov. That's why you don't see Chekhov anywhere at regional theaters unless you've got like
Unless you've got a name.
unless
Steve
you got a
Carell.
name. Yeah.
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 Exactly.
It's kind of
So-
Somebody
disappointing.
decides they
though,
want to
don't
do
you think?
Chekhov.
Don't you
Well,
think that's kind of disappointing?
I think you have to manage your expectations, and the story I'll use for this is the play Art, which was quite honestly never a great play.
No.
It was a great performance vehicle.
Yeah.
So if you get three people, like I went and saw Art with Alan Alda, Victor Garber, and Alfred Molina.
Wow. It's a hell of a cast.
It's in L.A. and
And they
for
could
those-
have read the phone book.
Yeah.
They could have read the phone book
Yeah.
and you would have been there, but they did this play, and it's cheeky. It's not very good. It's not very insightful. But I watched all the Victor Garber and Alfred Molina,
Alfred Molina.
Yeah.
and there were 4 or 5 times where just in the middle we all just exploded into a standing ovation,
Yeah.
and they had to stop the play and bow, and then because it's a performance vehicle.
Yeah.
It's if I tried to do that play with the three of us. We might do a pretty good job, but the play just doesn't support it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have
It's
to
like,
have that.
there
You have
was
to have
a-
those people.
But
There
what
was
if
a
you
musical-
don't like that person?
Wow. I mean, there was a musical version of The Goodbye Girl in the 90s, and Marvin Hamlish wrote the music. I mean, he's no slob,
No,
right?
he's great.
But it's a terrible musical. I saw it in New
I
York.
love that
I
show.
saw it. I saw
I
it in
saw
New
it in
York.
Chicago.
I saw it in New York with
I
Bernadette
did
Peters
too.
and Martin Short.
I saw
right?
him in Chicago pre-Broadway.
But see, Bernadette Peters and Martin Short, I'd watch them run around on
Oh
stage
my
in their
God.
underwear talking about telling
in
dumb dad
fact, I would
jokes.
have enjoyed that show even better if Bernadette Peters was running around.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a vehicle for those two people.
Right,
And if you're
yeah.
going to do that musical, you
Then
better
you gotta
get
do the
somebody
vi-
like Bernadette Peters and Martin Short to pull it off.
Yeah.
Because,
Right.
Well, and
It
even
was-
in that case, they didn't pull it off.
well, I know,
Wow.
but it was amazing.
But I actually really like that show.
I like.
But I would never do it because you can't.
No,
you have
but
to
you-
build it on those two people.
Yeah.
But Merrily We Roll Along. So
Yeah.
I saw that in New York,
Mhm.
and those three actors are amazing together. But but at the end I was like, it's a hard show to like.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still a hard show to like
Interesting.
Yeah.
because it starts out you don't like the leading man for 45 minutes,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
empathy.
Yeah, you gotta have it.
Yeah.
And it's a hard musical to like, even with them in it.
Yeah.
But that was built on those three actors.
That's how I feel about Pinter's Betrayal. Right? Betrayal is not a great play to me, but I've seen some pretty kick-ass actors in it, and then I'm like, okay, that I
Yeah.
liked. Right?
The entire oeuvre of Sam Shepard.
Yeah.
I loved this discussion. Can I keep some of this? This is awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Only the parts where we sound smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
You
I'll
all
be edited
sound
out.
smart.
I'll be edited out.
Put it, yeah.
I really am just so grateful to all three of you.
Oh,
Yes,
No,
thank
no.
you
Come
guys
to the
very much.
Roundtable today.
Hopefully we gave you something to cut together
I
and
love
figure out.
Maybe you'll get 5 minutes.
It was
It's a good day
Yay.
when someone mentions the musical The Goodbye Girl
Right?
at my present. That rarely happens.
They were amazing.
It has one of my favorite lyrics.
What's that?
we'll get a pizza and hit the sheets a little later.
Oh, I love it.
He said hit the sheet.
I love it.
Yeah, I was like, remember that one?
That's use that line right before you ask if you can be your
It's
meat.
great.
meat
helper. Yeah, it's up on the balcony when the rooftop when he's romancing her. That's right. And he does all the impressions and
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
But that will hit the.
I loved Martin Short's Richard III.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
Martin Short.
There was a lot of good stuff in that.
it was. It was.
that's the queen who would be king.
The Queen would be.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much
Thank
for
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
participating in our Lincoln Roundtable. Hey. Thank you for listening and supporting the arts in the Platte River area and beyond. Please subscribe to our podcast so you are sure to catch all of our future episodes and join us on social media. See you next time on the Platte River Bard.